Weiner. And I found that Weiner and executives from his company signed over 80 deeds for the buildings owned by Summit. But Jonathan Weiner is the brother of Pinnacle CEO Joel Weiner, so head of the company that filed bankruptcy. Tenants, the city, and even Attorney General Letitia James question whether there was an insider relationship in the deal.
Is Joel transferring his properties to his brother?
Summit and its attorneys say absolutely not. Judge David Jones, who's the federal bankruptcy judge in this case, he said yesterday that he agrees he doesn't see any connections in this deal. But he did say it was a really legitimate line of questioning because of a, quote, seeming proximity raised eyebrows. But he said he found that Summit proved that Chestnut and Denali aren't involved here.
David, very quickly, what comes next?
Well, we'll find out later today. I'll be following the case. The judge says he's going to issue a ruling this afternoon. I'll be looking to see if he attaches any conditions that bind Summit to committing a specific amount of money or timeline for repairs. And then just thinking long term, the Mamdani administration intervened here pretty late in the process, but they could be using this as a template or a learning experience for intervening in future deals.
WNYC's housing reporter, David Brand. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Michael.
WNYC support comes from Focus Features, presenting Begonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. In theaters now. Awards eligible.
WNYC and its local and national news coverage are supported by the Jerome L. Green Foundation, helping to make the arts affordable and accessible to all New Yorkers for more than 40 years.
The popular kid on campus, community colleges.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering a small ship experience with a shore excursion included in every port and onboard cultural enrichment. Discover more at Viking.com. And by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at Schwab.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. For the fourth fall in a row, enrollment in community colleges was up, this time up 3% from a year earlier. Now, that's according to a new report from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center. Why is interesting. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes has that.
41-year-old Titus Dominic has always loved to cook. So this fall, he enrolled in a culinary program at Columbus State Community College in Ohio.
The ultimate goal would be at some point to be able to own my own restaurant.
Dominic worked as a cook on an aircraft carrier when he was in the Navy years ago. For the last decade, he's worked as a commercial truck driver. He hopes this program will launch his new career.
At some point, I have to pull that thread and say it's time to go for it.
More people are doing the same as Dominic, going to community college with the aim of getting a particular job. There's been an increase in people seeking associate's degrees. And Matthew Holtzapfel, who leads the research team at the National Student Clearinghouse, says there's been an even bigger rise in short, job-focused certificate programs.
It speaks to students of all ages seeing the value of these short-term credentials. There's a wage payoff that students are seeing, and they see it as clear steps toward the career or the job that they want.
Another driver of growth, more high school students are now taking community college classes.
I think this kind of program helps students get into college sooner. So it helps students learn they can do college work and they can succeed in college.
Holtzapfel points out that community colleges aren't necessarily gaining at the expense of other schools. There has also been an uptick in the number of students going to four-year colleges. I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
Checking my market screens 2.5 hours or so before markets open officially. S&P futures are up 0.3%. NASDAQ futures are up 0.6%. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has quietly removed web pages that used to say mobile phones are not a health risk. The Wall Street Journal noticed the change. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s Department of Health and Human Services has ramped up a new study of the health effects, if any, of the radio waves emitted by phones. The FDA pages used to say, in part, the weight of scientific evidence has not linked exposure to radio frequency energy from cell phone use with any health problems.
Marketplace is supported by Ascendium Education Group, which is committed to making education and training after high school a reality for learners from low-income backgrounds. And by Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses with customizable coverage options as unique as your business. More at progressivecommercial.com.
The country and especially people in Minnesota remain on edge and upset after the killing of Renee Good, a 37-year-old U.S. citizen, by an ICE agent in Minnesota. This with more ICE agents and other federal officers deployed to the area. Amid all this, a key set of regional voices has been noticeably quiet. Executives from many of Minnesota's leading corporations. There are many. For more, I'm joined by Marketplace's senior economics contributor Chris Farrell in St. Paul. Hey, Chris.
Good morning, David.
Minnesota has headquarters for some very high-profile businesses. I'm thinking 3M, Target, Best Buy, General Mills, many more. Some of them have been right at the center of the immigration enforcement, immigration raids in their stores, employees detained in some cases. There have been calls for firms to protect employees and customers. What have been the public statements from big companies, given everything we've seen in the past week or so?
Well, David, there have been very few public statements so far. Generally, companies have said, look, they can't stop immigration officials from entering public spaces, and that's right. But here's the thing. Prominent executives served on nonprofit boards. They weigh in on workforce issues, and they tap their corporate foundations and personal pockets to support community initiatives. So with that history, with that background, corporate Minnesota's silence about increased federal immigration enforcement is striking.
Now, the administration's promise is that strict immigration policy will lead to more and better jobs for citizens. But, I mean, we've seen calculations, right, that this immigration enforcement has had negative effects, a negative impact on Minnesota's economy.
Well, local businesses, they're saying we have fewer customers. Employers say some workers are too afraid to come for their shifts. Farmers, restaurateurs, construction firms, just to name a few of the vulnerable industries, warn repeatedly about labor shortages and production bottlenecks from the crackdown.
What explains the retreat from the public square by large companies in Minnesota on these issues?
Minnesota's leading companies, they're national, they're global corporations, and the local economy is less important, says Louis Johnston, professor of economics at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University.
When you're looking at those kinds of things, it's better to keep quiet or to be as uncontroversial as possible and not take a side.
And Chris, the general political environment is volatile and the rhetoric can be intense, some will say vicious.
Executives seem concerned that if they raise objections, their company might find itself dealing with political retaliation, regulatory scrutiny, perhaps a consumer boycott, or some combination.
Once upon a time, CEOs, I think, were more prone to taking stands on public issues. The term was CEO activism.
Political scientist Samuel Huntington famously dubbed this mindset Davos Man, a multinational corporate elite confident in his problem-solving insights involving the world's most pressing issues. These days, CEOs are focused on navigating multiple uncertainties like tariffs and geopolitical upheavals. But here's the thing, David. In Minnesota and elsewhere, there are concerns that silence will exact a long-term price. Here's R.T. Ryback, a former mayor of Minneapolis.
The bigger threat is if we lose our competitive advantage of having a culturally fluent workforce that continues to grow.
Ryback is now the head of the Minneapolis Foundation.
Chris Farrell is Marketplace's senior economics contributor, speaking from St. Paul. Chris, thank you.
Thanks a lot, David.
Our executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Our digital team includes Antoinette Brock, Emily McCune, and Dylan Mietinen. Our engineers are Tessa Block, Brian Allison, and David Schreck. In Los Angeles, I'm another David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.